Managers of Reddit, what made you fire an employee on their first day? Customer service desk at an insurance company. Basically just rerouting incoming calls to the relevant claims handler. 18-year-old young guy comes in from a temp agency. He seemed a bit dippy, but should have been able to manage this job easily. After a couple of hours, he'd secured his headset to his head by wrapping clear sticky tape around his head and face several times. Weird, but okay. Checked on him again 15 minutes later, and he'd also clear sticky taped his telephone handset, each workstation had both, to his head in the same manner. Not only that, but he'd clear sticky taped his whole head to his monitor and was just sitting there going, I don't quite know what to do about this. All the while, the incoming calls stacked up. I know no one can be quite that inept, and it's most likely he was either just trying to be funny, or he just decided he didn't like the job and wanted out. But I prefer to think he's absolutely bleepin' mental, and imagine that he's now a stuntman or a rodeo clown or something. Yeehaw! I was assistant manager at a Subway. I usually like to give people time. It's a tougher job than it seems from the outside. Everyone sucks at first.
That's it?
And taking someone's livelihood away is not a decision to be made lightly. But I had this one lady who only lasted 3 hours. She was perfectly fine for the first couple of minutes while the store manager was there. But the store manager had a doctor's appointment, so she introduced us and told the new employee I was in charge when she wasn't there.
Go ahead.
As soon as my boss left, this lady just flatly ignored me when I asked her to do stuff like food prep or dishes.
Who do you think you are?
So I was already getting pretty pissed, but trying to be patient. When we got busy, I stationed her putting veggies on the sandwiches. She said a few things to customers that annoyed me, but nothing too bad at first. Then one guy asked for extra olives, and she told him no.
No way.
He was a bit offended and asked again, and she practically shouts, "You don't need any more olives, you have plenty!"
Come on!
So I tell her to give him the olives he's asking for. Then she starts shouting at me about Subway standard veggie portions,
She's a crazy psycho!
like I wasn't the one who taught her 45 minutes ago. I tried a little to explain that it's a default amount, but customers can get a little extra. No big deal.
Suck it up.
She wasn't having it, so I stepped away from my station, gave the poor guy his olives, and apologized. That's when she lost it and started screaming that I was undermining her. I told her to go do dishes, and I'd cover the station. She went storming off. Thank God. I was already planning on talking to the store manager about it because, holy bleep. But, as luck would have it, the franchise owner dropped in for something or other.
That'd be fantastic.
As soon as the girl starts realizing who he is, she started ranting about how I didn't control my veggie portions or some bleep, and I should be fired.
What?
When the franchise owner took my side, obviously, she shouted at him too. That was that, except that she called the store manager later in tears, begging to know what she'd done wrong, and made it sound like she didn't realize that I was her boss or that shouting at the owner about how he didn't know how to run his business was inappropriate.
You have plenty.
Used to work in IT for an airline, which meant shifts and being on call 24/7. We once had this guy whose mom would call and complain that her boy was being forced to do the graveyard shift because he's just a child. He should be treated like
Poor
this.
baby.
Our shift manager just told her that we all take turns doing the graveyard shift and that your boy is a grown-ass man in his 20s, so he should learn to act like one.
Suck it up.
The guy resigned shortly afterwards.
Sorry, Mom.
Day one, and I was in training and felt completely over my head. I oversold myself at an investment bank training program.
Damn it.
Part of my hubris included me faxing the accounting test to my CPA. This was early 2000s. I told him, just get a B on this thing. Anyway, back to the training session. I realized I couldn't BS my way through working shoulder to shoulder with people smarter and more highly educated than me.
I'm in trouble.
Someone would rat me out, and I would be humiliated and found out. Anyway, at lunch I said, to hell with it, and called my girlfriend from the car and told her I was coming home. Just then I realized I'd left my suit coat on the back of the chair in the training
Totally
room.
screwed
I
her.
figured I would
What?
need that thing to interview for the next job. I walked into the room and people started filtering back from lunch. I was stuck there until the end of the day.
Oh.
However, I got my bleep together as the day wore on, and my confidence built just enough for me to show up the next day.
You're almost
I
there.
spent the next 3 months with my nose in an accounting book and paid a grad student to help me get those boring concepts stuck in my head.
That's it?
I eventually caught up. So here I am 20 years later, and I own an investment bank with 4 colleagues from the investment house, and I'm about 10 years away from retirement. If it wasn't for that suit jacket, I would probably be the #1 salesman at a company that sells toner cartridges or something.
You're almost there.
So technically not their first day, but this was the last day of their temp trial period, and the next day they were going to be made full-time. He was a forklift driver, and we keep materials stacked high on very tall racks. Operators are told never to drive up with the forklift raised. You remain stationary, lift up, get the pallet, bring it all the way down, then drive.
Okay.
So this temp decides to drive the forklift while raised, clips the sprinkler, tears the piping from the ceiling, causes the water system to go off, and half of our warehouse is flooded.
I'm in
We make
trouble.
labels in our shop, and the paper and water don't go well together. He ended up destroying over $40,000 worth of finished product. That's product we already spent money and time making.
I love how most people don't realize just how much water comes out of a sprinkler system.
Dude got a job as the overnight shift in my gym. The overnight here is alone. He arrives at 9 p.m. and is here till 7 a.m. At about 10:30, another employee comes in to work out and notices the "Please scan here" sign is up. This is used when the overnight goes to the bathroom or steps away from the front desk for whatever reason. The employee works out for an hour and notices that the sign is still up. He walks into the break room, bathroom, etc., and can't find the new guy. Turns out he left an hour into his shift. Manager had to come cover.
Damn it.
He wouldn't have known until the next day if the employee wasn't working out there. Dude ignores all calls for the manager and doesn't even come to get his check from his training days.
Can you even lift?
So I was managing a low-end casual chain restaurant and had hired this kid, probably 17 or 18, the prior week. Let's call him Tony.
Okay.
I had done orientation with him on his first day, and then I had to go off for a week of vacation.
Poor baby.
On my first day back from vacation, Tony is an hour late. We were super busy, so I tell him just to get to work cooking, and I will address it later.
Damn it.
He looks very lost and confused, even though he had 5 days training with my lead trainer. He pulls me aside and says he will be right back and needs to go to the restroom. I'm a bit frustrated with him already and confused why he's asking, but say it's fine, obviously. Then it happens. My lead trainer comes in and tells me that this kid is not Tony. Shocked, I reply with, "What do you mean?" She says, "I was training Tony for 5 days. That's not him." I honestly thought he was a new hire. Now, I'd only met the kid once for an hour right before my vacation, so honestly I didn't remember what he looked like. I pulled to the bathroom to confront him once he comes out and find the restroom empty with a folded up shirt and hat on the outside of one of the stalls. Next day I call Tony and ask him, "What the hell?" He ignores my first call and then blocks my next call. So I try from my cell phone and he answers. I say my name immediately and he hangs up and blocks me too. So my staff and I were left to assume that Tony apparently sent his friend to work for his job in full uniform, and nobody but my lead trainer caught it.
Dinner?
I don't know if I should be embarrassed or impressed that his friend has major balls to go undercover like that.
Great big balls of steel.
I think she kind of fired herself.
Go ahead.
She didn't show up at all, in all actual work capacity. Her first non-training day shift was opening on a Saturday. This place opened at 5:30 a.m., so me, excited to sleep in because I opened Monday to Friday, got woken up at 5:30 on the dot because obviously clients called in immediately. Whatever, maybe something happened. It sucked for me and for the people trying to get in early morning workouts, but I made it there and had it covered.
Suck it up.
The problem was when I tried to talk to her about it. She didn't even let me get started. She immediately started yelling at me that I didn't give her enough space for her personal issues or something like
You
that.
don't know.
And then she had emailed the VP of the company about how awful I was. I wouldn't have fired her for that. I tried to talk to her about it and find out why it happened. In a way, I still felt bad for her, but I had no chance at all, and she just went all scorched earth. She ended up being fired by a person above me.
She's a crazy psycho.
She started a fight with another employee. The other employee? The fiancé of her baby daddy.
Oh,
This man literally got a job for his girlfriend and his side chick for the same position, same location, and same schedule.
Come on.
I don't know what became of that situation, but I had to break them up and then call the police when the side chick tried to run over the fiancé down in the parking lot and wreck 3 cars in the process. I'm so glad I don't work security anymore. I want those years of my life back. I was night shift manager for McDonald's in high school.
Loving it.
New guy, 17, makes an ice cream sundae for a customer with gloopy cold fudge. When the customer complained, he put the whole sundae in the industrial microwave oven we used to melt cheese in like 10 seconds. On like 2 minutes, no less. Enough to start a nuclear reaction.
What?
The whole thing melted, plastic container included. He opened the door to steam and slop.
Damn it.
Took out the melted, half-full containers, put them on a tray and served them to the customer. Which is when I became aware. She rightfully asked to speak to the manager. LOL. I got the customer set up, apologized, and pulled the kid aside to figure out what happened.
I'm
While
sorry.
staring at the still steaming tray of sundae slop, all he had to say to himself was, I needed to melt fudge. I told him, please take his shirt off and go home. I think he's had enough for the day.
That'd be fantastic.
Before anyone asked, he was trained on an ice cream machine by me personally earlier in the shift. Told the store manager what had happened in our manager meeting the next day, and I said, I absolutely don't want him on my shift. The other managers laughed at me but echoed the same. The store manager let him go. I called him in and told him, apologized, and said it's not going to work out, and he came in to pick up his check for the hours that he worked in the 2 weeks. He said, okay, thanks, and I thought that was the end of it. His mom actually came up to the store about an hour later and asked to speak to me, since I was the manager who sent him home. I said, sure.
What?
We grabbed a booth and sat down. She proceeded to tear me a new one for being an incompetent manager. Like a dumbass, I sat there for a few minutes to take it until she took a breath to breathe. I said, look, I understand this is your son's first job. I'm still in high school myself. But anyone who tries to microwave ice cream and then serve it to a client won't be allowed on my shift. She turned bright red and started screaming at me. I got up politely and told her she was causing a scene and to please leave the property. It actually escalated to me having to call the police to get her to leave. She didn't think I actually would call them. Stuck around until they showed up and then tried to split. They stopped her in the parking lot, put magic handcuffs on her, and eventually let her go. 10 on 10 would fire again. Highly entertaining.
You can't handle the truth.
I wasn't a manager, but a supervisor at the time. Dude's second day on the job. Called in, running late from his bartending job. Shows up at the job, grocery store, third shift. So amazingly drunk that he could barely stand.
I'm the
He was
man.
upstairs in the bathroom, shirtless and covered in puke. I called a coworker in to help me persuade him to take a ride home. He refused to get a ride, kept saying how he's got a kid for about 30 minutes.
Suck it up.
I finally told him if he doesn't get a ride home immediately with my coworker, I'm calling the cops. My coworker apparently held him back from fighting me in the parking lot. The guy still holds a grudge against me. Oh yeah, not only was he going to drive home, but on a moped. Bleep that guy.